Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas have revealed a new detail about the first private messages that eventually led to their marriage. During the July 14th episode of the Jonas Brothers' Hey Jonas podcast, Priyanka explained that once she and Nick moved their conversation away from social media, he made an unexpected request. He wanted a photograph taken in that moment, with Priyanka looking directly into the camera and showing a timestamp. Nick was apparently trying to confirm that the person texting him really was Priyanka Chopra. But why was he uncertain, and how did a cautious identity check turn into one of entertainment's most closely followed relationships? For verified entertainment updates without the rumors, subscribe to Startline Entertainment. The newest version of the story comes directly from Priyanka and Nick rather than an unnamed source or retrospective gossip account. Priyanka appeared alongside Nick, Joe Jonas, and Kevin Jonas on their podcast, where the brothers revisited the original exchange and performed a playful reading of the couple's earliest messages. That matters because parts of their romance have been told repeatedly since 2018. But the time-stamped photo request had not been a major part of the public timeline before this conversation. According to Nick's account, the story began while Kevin was talking to him about Priyanka's ABC series Quantico. Nick said he had not watched the show, but at almost the same moment, he looked up on Sunset Boulevard and saw Priyanka's face on a billboard. He then checked whether she followed him on Twitter, now known as X, and sent a direct message. The first message was polite rather than dramatic. Nick wrote that he had heard from several people that they should meet and asked whether Priyanka would be in Los Angeles. Priyanka responded that their mutual acquaintance Graham Rogers had told her about Nick, then suggested moving the conversation to ordinary text messages because members of her professional team could access her social media account. That move from a professionally accessible account to a private number created the question behind Nick's unusual request. Priyanka said Nick wanted to corroborate that it was actually her on the other side of the conversation. He asked for a real-time photograph showing her looking toward the camera, along with the timestamp. She remembered thinking the request seemed suspicious, but she also said she appreciated it. The exchange was presented as a funny memory rather than a serious conflict. Nick's brothers joked that requesting a photograph was also a convenient way for him to receive a picture of someone he was interested in. Priyanka clarified that the image was taken after a fashion show, while Nick described it as an ordinary photograph meant to verify her identity. Nothing in their account suggests that the request became a source of lasting tension. There is also an important fact-checking correction in the newest coverage. People's Summary says Nick initially contacted Priyanka through Instagram, but the original podcast conversation specifically identifies Twitter, and earlier reporting about their courtship has also described the exchange as Twitter direct messages. Because the podcast is the primary source, Twitter is the better supported platform. The timeline did not immediately become a romance. Nick said approximately a year and a half passed between the original messages and the point when they began dating. Their early communication was flirtatious, but their schedules and circumstances did not produce an immediate relationship. The familiar description of their romance as a sudden whirlwind is therefore only partly accurate. The engagement moved quickly, but the private connection had existed much longer. They did meet before they officially became a couple. Vogue's detailed 2018 profile reported that they had a drink at New York's Carlyle Hotel shortly before attending the 2017 Met Gala together, as guests of Ralph Lauren. Priyanka later invited Nick to her apartment, where her mother was also present. They attended the Met Gala together, but their relationship still did not immediately progress into formal dating. This is where public descriptions of their first date become slightly complicated. That Carlyle meeting has been described as a proper drink and an early romantic encounter. However, Nick has also called a 2018 group outing to a live Beauty and the Beast performance at the Hollywood Bowl their first date. He invited friends, including Kevin, because he wanted to reduce the pressure if the chemistry did not feel right. Both descriptions can be true depending on what the couple considers the starting point. The Carlyle meeting happened before the 2017 Met Gala, during their long period of texting and occasional contact. The Hollywood Bowl event came after they reconnected in 2018 and appears to represent the beginning of the relationship that quickly led to their engagement. Calling either event the one undisputed first date would overstate what the public accounts establish. Once their timing aligned in 2018, the relationship moved rapidly. In the new podcast conversation, Priyanka referred to approximately 2.5 months before the engagement. Later in the same episode, Nick described the period from their first date to the proposal as roughly 5.5 weeks. Earlier reports have generally described the engagement as happening within a few months of their official dating relationship. Because the couple used different measurements during the conversation, within a few months is the safest wording. Nick proposed during a birthday trip to Greece in July 2018. Previous interviews described Priyanka becoming silent for approximately 45 seconds after he got down on one knee. The latest podcast retelling adds that the proposal came late at night after travel delays and that Nick eventually placed the ring on her finger while she was still processing what was happening. She then said yes. Their wedding took place in December 2018 at the Umad Bhawan Palace in Jodhpur, India. The celebrations included both Christian and Hindu ceremonies, reflecting their two families and cultural traditions. The scale of that wedding helped create the public impression of an almost instant celebrity romance. But the newly revisited messages show that the connection began quietly more than 2 years earlier. The couple later welcomed their daughter, Malti Marie, in January 2022. During the new podcast appearance, their conversation moved beyond the old messages and into what parenthood and marriage now look like. Priyanka spoke about discovering greater resilience after becoming a parent, while Nick praised her patience and the attention she gives their daughter, despite an international career and demanding production schedule. They also described the practical effort required to maintain their relationship while working in different places. Priyanka had been filming in India, while Nick and his brothers had touring commitments. Nick said they try to deliberately reserve time for trips, even when that means something brief and close to home. Priyanka said one of her favorite parts of their relationship is planning places they hope to visit and imagining future experiences together. The larger meaning of the time-stamped photo story is not that Nick began the relationship with a grand romantic gesture. It is almost the opposite. The conversation started with a formal message, moved off a professional account, and included a basic attempt to verify identity. The romance developed after that practical beginning, through a long period of communication and several in-person meetings. That makes the new detail interesting, because it complicates the polished version of their story without contradicting it. There is also no evidence that Priyanka revealed the story as criticism of Nick. The discussion was humorous, both participated willingly, and she specifically said she appreciated the reason behind his request, even though her first reaction was that it seemed suspicious. Headlines describing it as strange refer to the unusual nature of the request, not to a confirmed disagreement between them. The timing of the revelation is another reason the story is receiving attention. The couple is approaching 8 years of marriage in December 2026, and the podcast gave them an opportunity to compare the careful opening messages with the life they have built since then. Nick marked their 7th anniversary in December 2025 by publicly referring to Priyanka as his dream girl. Here is the start line takeaway. What changed is not the established timeline of Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas' relationship, but the level of detail available about its earliest stage. The public already knew that Nick initiated contact and that they communicated privately before dating. The new element is that Nick apparently wanted visual confirmation before trusting that the private number belonged to Priyanka. What viewers should not assume is that the request proves jealousy, distrust, or a hidden relationship problem. Based on their own account, it was an identity check that quickly became an inside joke. The clearest verified summary is this. Nick became interested after Kevin mentioned Quantico, and Nick noticed Priyanka on a Sunset Boulevard billboard. He contacted her through Twitter. They moved the exchange to text messages, and he requested a real-time time-stamped photograph to make sure it was actually her. They continued communicating for roughly a year and a half before officially dating, became engaged within a few months, and married in India in December 2018. What began as a request for proof has now become one more detail in a relationship the couple has documented across nearly a decade. The unanswered question is no longer whether Priyanka was really the person behind the number. It is how one cautious message, sent after a chance look at a billboard, managed to stay alive long enough for the timing between them finally to work.